All right, we're live, baby. Ha ha. Sorry for the delay. It's just for a 45-minute delay, but I'm now live right on the Cartoon Man 13 channel with the first ever episode of WHAM, A Week in Wrestling. Yeah, baby. Hey guys, how's everybody doing? I'm the Cartoon Man 13, but you can call me Triple R. And welcome to the first ever episode of WHAM, A Week in Wrestling, where I go over all that happened throughout the week of pro wrestling. Oh boy, can't wait to get started. We got any fans in the chat going on? Give me a shout out or a hi or whatever. It's just, oh boy, I just can't wait. I just can't wait for it. Now, as for the PLEs, or pay-per-views really, since this was a pay-per-view filled weekend, I didn't watch all the pay-per-views, unfortunately. I didn't watch Saturday night's main event. I didn't watch All In. I didn't watch Great American Bash yesterday because I got a younger cousin of mine who just turned 8, and I went out of town to a water park in a little place called Adventure Park. I got sunburned, but it was fun. And afterwards, I went to my relative's house. I went to a relative's house where my cousin, my cousin Eric, who turned 8. Nino Jimmy's his dad, and he's my Nino. But yeah, afterwards we went to Nino Jimmy's house and ate chicken and sandwiches and mashed potatoes, and it was just fun. So yeah, it was a pretty busy Saturday and also a pretty busy Sunday, so I couldn't watch Evolution either, but I'll give you all my reviews of all the go-home shows that happened in the week of pro wrestling. So yeah, why don't we just while there's nobody in the chat who's I only got a single viewer of mine who's watching the video, and maybe it'll grow as more and more people, more and more people are aware of it, but I'm doing this live so that you guys could yeah, and sorry I started off late. I know that I said that I started at 8 o'clock, but even then I was busy around 8 o'clock, and now it's 8:45. How about 8:45 or 9 o'clock from on? I don't know, but yeah, I know. Literally, I'm about 4 minutes into the stream, and yeah, it's just been really busy for me, and it was a pretty crazy week for pro wrestling. I mean, a lot of go home shows that led to all kinds of pay-per-views, and PLEs. It's just absolutely crazy with Raw and NXT and SmackDown and Dynamite and Collision. It was just a lot of go home shows before major pay-per-views and PLEs that went down on the show, and yeah. So yeah, why don't we just go ahead and I'll give you my thoughts and reviews of what went down in the week of pro wrestling. So we're gonna start things off with Monday Night Raw, which was a which was a pretty solid go-home show for Monday Night Raw, in my opinion. I'm going to go over a brief little overview. I wrote down some notes just in case if I forgot, but I did write down lots of notes for all these shows that went down. So we're going to start things off with Monday Night Raw that aired this past Monday on Netflix. And here's a list of what went down and what my thoughts was on Monday Night Raw as I'm reading the notes that I wrote down. Okay, so the show starts with Seth Rollins, Paul Heyman, Braun Breaker, and Bronson Reed. The crowd's singing Seth Rollins' song as usual. Braun Breaker discusses Rollins' future and a future of his own, which is his future without Sami Zayn, and he expresses his disdain, if I learned how to talk right, expresses his disdain towards Zayn. He's talking about how Sami Zayn happens to be somebody who can't do this and this right. Big Bronson Reed discusses his relationship towards Rollins and his rivalry towards Jey Uso. Crowd chants CM Punk's name. Heyman mentions the Empire Strikes Back and that it's a blooper and that it's the Empire Strikes First. It's not Empire Strikes Back. It's Empire Strikes First. Discusses Jey Uso and Roman Reigns in the upcoming match between Rollins and Penta. He says some stuff in Spanish towards Penta. Rollins does the Monday Night Rollins bit at the end of the segment. Then we cut to a brief bit with the Judgment Day showcasing all their belts, saying how they're like the best team in all of pro wrestling. Roxanne Perez and Raquel Rodriguez, they're discussing retaining the women's tag team titles in Evolution. Dirty Dominic Mysterio brings out a cake at first to congratulate Finn Balor and JD McDonough for beating the New Day to become the World Tag Team Champions on last week's show. But what he didn't know was that the cake actually said, "Get well soon, Dirty Dom," from AJ. AJ Styles appears. Dirty Dom tries to go after him, but he vanishes into nowhere. Spots that I liked, hearing the crowd singing Seth Rollins' theme as usual, which then leads into the opening match. Kairi Sane versus Roxanne Perez. Here's a bit of a summary and some spots that I liked on the opening match of Monday Night Raw. Both women put up a solid fight at the beginning of the match. Raquel Rodriguez watches on with the women's tag team titles. Perez does a vicious slap to the face on Zayn. Zayn takes down Perez with a punch in the face. Zayn gives Perez quite a beating. Rodriguez tries to interfere. Perez bends Zayn's arm quite violently. Cut to commercial break. Zayn continues to dominate over Perez. Perez holds the top ring rope while Zayn tries to drag her out. Zayn and Perez do get out in the middle rope, and Zayn takes down Perez and later on Rodriguez. Zayn pins Perez easily for the complete pinfall to win the match. And that's it for that match. Post-match, Perez and Rodriguez attack Zayn. Asuka appears to help Zayn and give Perez and Rodriguez a beatdown. Asuka does a hip swing on Rodriguez. Asuka grabs onto Perez for Zayn to jump on her. The Kabuki Warriors is reunited. Kairi Sane and Asuka are reunited with the Kabuki Warriors. Solid. I do remember the match being solid. A solid way to start off my first coverage of Monday Night Raw. Jackie Redmond introduces Sami Zayn. Redmond wants to know more Zayn and Braun Breaker, but Zayn can't talk about it at the moment. Scarlett appears. Redmond asks Scarlett if she's got anything to say. Scarlett replies no. Go to commercial break. Leads to American Made and Raw GM Adam Pearce discussing El Grande Americano, the Kabuki Warriors. They appear and they become a part of the Evolution in the four-way tag team match for the women's tag team titles representing the side of Monday Night Raw. Leads to video package with Nikki Bella, who discusses the Battle Royale match at Evolution on Sunday and why she At the end of the segment, that she said that she wanted to prove to everybody that she's something else. Then it leads to Sami Zayn versus Braun Breaker. Karrion Kross attacks Zayn from behind while Zayn does his intro. Scarlett appears alongside Kross, gives Kross a pie to attack Zayn with, which he does right into the gut. Referee, security, and Adam Pearce, they all come out to help Sami Zayn and separate him from Kross and Scarlett. Cut to commercial break. Leads to Zayn in the ring, saying to Adam Pearce that he wants to continue the match with Braun Breaker. Breaker appears with Heyman to start the match with Sami Zayn and Braun Breaker. Here's a bit of a summary and spots that I like. Breaker dominates over Zayn before they start beating each other up. Breaker takes down Zayn and then starts to talk smack over Zayn. Breaker aims for Zayn's painful gut with his knees. Dominates over Zayn. Impressive German suplex by Breaker on Zayn. Zayn starts to get an advantage, but then Breaker does a spear on Zayn that sends him out of the ring. Breaker gets out of the ring to do another spear on Zayn. Both men land back into the ring. Breaker does a third spear on Zayn to land the complete pinfall on Zayn to win the match. Nothing happened post-match. Cut to Adam Pearce and the War Raiders, along with the New Day, dressed up like they're at a funeral for losing the World Tag Team titles to the Judgment Day on last week's show. Becky Lynch appears alongside the New Day to show support and a little bit of conflict as Lynch makes her way into the ring. Cut to commercial break. Lynch is in the ring discussing her match at Evolution against Bayley and Lyra Valkyria for the Women's IC title. Bayley appears right when Bayley was going to talk smack to Lynch. Valkyria appears as well. Valkyria enters the ring before Bayley discusses to Lynch regarding the title and how it should be on her waist. Bayley says the same thing, leads to an argument and eventually beat down on who will end up, and eventually leads to an argument and an eventual beatdown on who will end up with the title at Evolution on Sunday. Valkyria says to Lynch that this will be the last time that she'll raise her hand with a title on it. Then it cuts to a video package showcasing last week's match between Sheamus and Rusev, which Rusev wins that match. Cut to Rollins, Reed, and Breaker. Rollins discussing the Breaker about Zayn. Rollins was proud of Breaker for his efforts, but Breaker shows a little regret. Paul Heyman appears with Seth Rollins' Money in the Bank briefcase and then tells Breaker and Rollins that Zayn's out of action indefinitely. Breaker loses his regret and starts laughing alongside Rollins and Reed. Rollins talks to Reed about Jey Uso and that he's in good enough condition to fight against Reed later on tonight. Reed shows determination to take down Uso, leads to Jey Uso versus Bronson Reed. Jey Uso begins to yeet towards the crowd. Couple spots that I liked. Uso yeeting towards the crowd. Uso does impressive moves as the match starts, but Reed dominates soon afterwards. Uso does an impressive kick on Reed, hurling Reed out of the ring. Uso does a suicide dive / suicida because WWE calls it suicide dive, but AEW they call it suicida, causing Reed to land on the announce table. Uso starts to clear the table. Reed tries to throw Uso onto the table, but Uso reverses and does a Young Sucks, so-called lead styles on Reed, causing Reed to sit on the chair and then second super kick, causing Reed to trip over the chair. Uso attempts to do a second suicide dive / suicida, but Reed throws a chair at Uso, causing the match to end in a DQ. Post-match, Reed does 2 tsunamis on Uso. Referee, security, and Adam Pearce, they all appear to separate Reed from Uso. Cut to commercial break. Then it cuts to a video package of LA Knight discussing Seth Rollins and their match on Saturday night's main event. Cuts to another video package of Rhea Ripley and Io Sky's match at Evolution on Sunday. Cuts to El Grande Americano versus Dragon Lee. Cut to commercial break. And then a couple spots that I liked. El Grande Americano being a show-off. Lee starts to dominate. Both men show off their acrobatic skills. Lee does a drop kick on El Grande Americano's face. Lee sends EGA out of the ring, does another drop kick on him, causing him to land on the announce table. Lee attempts a suicide dive / suicida, but EGA stops him with a kick to the face. EGA sends Lee towards the steel stairs. EGA repeatedly punches Lee in the face on the stairs. EGA sends Lee to the timekeeper's area, cut to commercial break. EGA tries to remove Lee's mask, but fails as Lee from the top rope lands on EGA. Lee attempts a German suplex, but EGA reverses and gives an elbow to Lee's face. Both men fight for a little bit. Lee attempts to remove EGA's mask, but fails. Lee dominates over EGA and lands quite some near falls as a result. Both men put up a good fight so far. EGA does the usual metal plate on his mask. Lee tries to jump on EGA, but nobody home as EGA ducks. EGA headbutts Lee quite violently with the metal plate, then lands the complete pinfall on Lee to win the match. Nothing happens post-match. We cut to Penta and Paul Heyman, with Paul Heyman carrying Seth Rollins' Money in the Bank's briefcase, talk smack to each other in Spanish. Breaker appears to try to prove a point to Penta. Penta does a serum yet a bit and then walks away. Heyman and Breaker both in disbelief. Commercial break. Cuts to video package showcasing Stephanie Vaquer and her involvement in the Battle Royale match at Evolution on Sunday. NXT GM Ava to announce Battle Royale participants on tomorrow night's episode of NXT. Cuts to World Heavyweight Champion Gunther to discuss his match at Saturday night's main event against Goldberg for the World Heavyweight title, since this was Goldberg's retirement match. Goldberg appears driving around like a maniac in an awesome muscle car, walks very fast and with an angry look on his face into the arena and into the ring. Goldberg slaps the mic out of Gunther's hand. Goldberg beats down Gunther, but Gunther retreats afterwards. Cuts to rundowns of both Saturday night's main event and Evolution. Cuts to Penta as he prepares for his match against Seth Rollins. Cuts to commercial break. Cuts to Penta versus Seth Rollins in the main event. Both men make their intros. Heyman accompanies Rollins with the Money in the Bank briefcase. Match summary / spots that I like. Penta starts the match by doing a Young Syke SoCal Elite style super kick on Rollins, calls him to land on the outside of the ring. Penta beats Rollins' head into the announce table. Penta continues to dominate over Rollins. Penta slaps Rollins in the chest over the LED display ring post. Penta bangs Rollins' head on the announce table. Penta stands on the table. Penta attempts another slap, but nobody home, as Rollins ducks and causes Penta to hurt his hand on the LED display ring post. LED malfunctions a little bit due to the impact. Rollins sends Penta into the timekeeper's area. Penta jumps off the timekeeper's area to do a Hurricane Rana on Rollins. Penta continues to dominate over Rollins. Rollins suffocates Penta with his knee. Both men put up a good fight. Penta does a suicide dive / suicide on Rollins. Cut to commercial break. Rollins uses Penta's mask to wipe off his sweat that's on his forehead. Both men put up a good fight so far. Rollins does a frog splash on Penta for a near fall. Rollins attempts to do a stop, but nobody home as Penta ducks. Both men are impressive so far in this match. Crowd chants, "Let's go, Penta!" Penta annihilates Rollins for a bit, then tries to pin him, only for Rollins to do a rope break. Rollins does a stomp on Penta and lands a complete pinfall to win the match. Post-match, Heyman calls Reed and Breaker into the ring. LA Knight appears to do the BFT on Rollins. Knight runs away from Reed and Breaker. Knight does the LA Knight yeah chant with the crowd. Knight's theme plays. Crowd chants LA Knight. Raw goes off the air. Overall, a solid go-home show before Saturday night's main event and Evolution on Saturday and Sunday, respectively. Solid matches on the card. Some really impressive moments. Overall, this episode was a good hit. So yeah, that was how I thought of Monday Night Raw. Sorry about that, but anyway. just a brief little rundown of what that went down on Raw, the notes that I took. Yeah. Monday Night Raw was a good show. It was a good way to be the go home show before Saturday night's main event in Evolution. I got 3 people watching my stream right now, and so yeah, Monday Night Raw was a good show. I thought that all the wrestlers did a good job with their matches, and what a way to lead into Evolution and Saturday night's main event. Now let's move on to NXT, which aired on Tuesday nights. Show starts with Ricky Saints versus Evolve's The Vanity Project in a gauntlet match with NXT North American Champion Ethan Page on commentary. A match summary and spots that I liked. Match starts with Brad Baylor of Swipe Right within The Vanity Project. Both men put up a decent fight. Baylor acting like a coward. Saints climbs to the top row to take down Baylor and pin to move on to the next opponent, Ricky Smokes, who comes in to fill that spot. Cut to commercial break. Smokes dominates over Saints. Saints drags around Smokes like a rag doll. Saints pins Smokes in an awesome way. Now Evolve champion Jackson Drake enters into the ring. Saints and Drake put up a good fight. Drake hits Saints' gun with his knee for a near fall. Drake does a super kick on Saints. Saints takes down Drake very easily to land a complete pinfall and win the match. Post-match, Saints cuts a promo regarding his fall count anywhere match against Ethan Page for the NXT North American title at the Great American Bash. Cut to Zarya and Sol Ruka along with Laney Reed, Thea Hill, and Clyde Jordan discussing the Battle Royale match at Evolution on Sunday. Cut to commercial break. Cut to video package of Jordan Grace and Blake Monroe talking to each other on the phone. Then the next match, we got Charlie Dempsey versus Tavion Heights, where if Tavion Heights wins the match, then he can leave the No Quarter Catch crew. Spots that I like. Decent start to the match. Dempsey slaps Heights in the face, causing Heights to give a vicious beating to Dempsey. Cut to commercial break. Both men put up a solid showing as we get back from break. Then Dempsey does a submission hold on Heights. Dempsey kicks Heights in the gut. Dempsey continues to dominate over Heights. Dempsey does another submission on Heights. Ren Sinclair throws the white flag, causing Dempsey to win the match. Nothing happens post-match. Cut to NXT Tag Team Champions Hank and Tank as they prepare to defend the titles against the Calling. Javon Evans appears to give motivation to Hank and Tank. LFG first season winner Jasper Troy appears out of nowhere to attack Evans. Referees and security appear to separate Troy from Evans. Then we cut to TNA Impact's Mike Santana and Joe Hendry versus the High Rise. Spots that I liked and match summary. Joe Hendry and Tyson DuPont start the match off. They fight a little bit, then they tag in Santana and Igwe. Hendry helps out. Santana and Hendry do a brief confrontation that's setting up for the match on Slammiversary for the TNA World Title against TNA World Champion Trick Williams. Cut to commercial break. Hendry dominates over DuPont. DuPont tags in Igwe. Igwe takes down Hendry for a near fall. Natalya and Maxine Dupree appear. Igwe does a submission hold on Hendry. Hendry frees and tags in Santana. Santana taking care of both Igwe and DuPont. All 4 men put up a good fight so far. Trick Williams appears and pushes Hendry into the steel stairs, but Santana pins DuPont to win the match. Post-match, all 6 men get into a brawl with Williams in the High Rise dominating over Santana and Hendry. Cuts to video package of the top contenders match for the NXT title between Yoshiki Inamura versus Jasper Troy, which Yoshiki Inamura won the match from last week's show. Cuts to Josh Briggs and Yoshiki Inamura as lead into the commercial break. Cuts to video package of the Dark State as they discuss their invasion on this past Thursday's episode of TNA Impact. Cuts to Josh Briggs and Yoshiki Inamura with NXT champion Oba Femi as they cut a quick promo regarding Inamura and Femi's match for the NXT title at the Great American Bash on Saturday. Briggs begins to talk smack after Inamura and Femi's bits. All three men get into a fight. Cut to a video package of Grace and Monroe again as they're at a salon getting a makeover. Then it cuts to Kalani Jordan versus Lainey Reed. Spots that I like in a match summary too. Jordan makes her way in the ring. Cut to commercial break. Reed already begins to go after Jordan before the bell rings. Both Jordan and Reed put up a good fight. We see Zelina Vega walk into the Performance Center as Reed and Jordan are fighting. Jordan pins Reed to win the match. Post-match, Thea Hale beats up Reed and Jordan as Jordan just stands there and watches. Cuts to Javon Evans and a medic as Jasper Troy comes in yet again and attacks Evans. Cut to commercial break. Cuts to NXT Spotlight on the D'Angelo family as they confront each other in a quick promo. Cuts to Jasper Troy as he wants the NXT title match on Saturday to be a triple threat match. Javon Evans appears with security separating him. Evans does a suicide dive / suicide on security, taking out almost everybody. More security comes in to break up Evans from Troy. Cut to meeting with the Collision regarding their tag team title match against Tank and Tank, which becomes the next match on the show. The Collision versus Hank and Tank for the NXT tag team titles. Match summary and spots that I like. The Collision make their intro. Cut to commercial break. Hank and Tank make their intro. Hank and Tank already go after the Collision before the bell rings. Hank and Tank squash on a Nico Vance, and they go for their pin on Vance for a near fall. Ivy now makes her way in the Performance Center as all four men continue to fight. Hank goes into brief confrontation with Izzy Dame and Tatum Paxley. Sean Spears pushes Hank into the announce table. All four members of the Collision come together to be show-offs for a little bit. Cut to commercial break. Hank takes out Vance on the announce table. Paxley cheers on for the Collision while sitting down on the middle rope. Dame punches Hank in the face for Vance to pin and make a near fall. Two women appear to attack Dame and Paxley. Hank pins his Spears to win the match and retain the titles. Cuts to rundown of the Great American Bash on Saturday. Cuts to NXT GM Ava as a lead-in for the commercial break. Cuts to Chase U as they're in a medic with a member getting his blood pressure and another member wearing a stethoscope. Then it leads to the WWE Evolution Summit with a summary. NXT GM Ava unveils the 6 members of NXT that will be at the Battle Royale at Evolution on Sunday. The list includes Jada Parker, Lola Vice, Kalani Jordan, Lash Legend, Izzy Dame, and Tatum Paxley. Fatal Influence appears to interrupt. Jordan Grace appears and interrupts Fatal Influence. Lash Legend then appears to discuss her winning the Battle Royale. Stephanie Vaquer appears to make her return to NXT to cheer for Jordan Grace at Evolution on Sunday for the title. Natalya and Maxine Dupree appear, followed by Zelina Vega, Ivy Jada Parker, and all of the other participants in the Evolution Battle Royale. They all get into a huge brawl. Damon Paxley watch on as NXT goes on off the air. Overall, NXT was a decent go-home show before the Great American Bash on Saturday and Evolution on Sunday. Jordan versus Reed match wasn't really nothing special. I mean, Jordan wins the match that easily. The match didn't really need to happen at the end of the day. It looks like Heights will remain with the no quarter catch crew. I mean, Miles Bourne already was able to make it through solo, but I guess that Heights will remain with the no quarter catch crew at least for a little bit. Hank and Tank versus the Collision was the best match on the show. Everything else was okay. This episode was a decent hit. Yeah, I do feel that a lot of the best moments went on to the Hank and Tank versus the Collision for the NXT titles, the NXT tag team titles. And that was when went down NXT, and a little brief review on that. Now we move on to AEW Dynamite. Show starts with the final face-off between Timeless Tony Storm and Mercedes Moné before All In on Saturday. Tony Storm appears on screen with Luther the Butler. Moné wants Storm to appear in person and calls her a mark. Storm finally appears into the ring. Moné proposes a toast with Storm, a toast to Moné, who proclaims herself as the future AEW Women's World Champion. Save the BS for your match, Mercedes, says Timeless Tony Storm. Storm and Moné talking about each other's successes. Moné says that she's not afraid of nothing or nobody. Moné also says that nobody's going to stop the Moné train, and not even Storm. You're the woman who just couldn't win the big title, says Timeless Tony Storm. May the best woman win, says Moné. Eat shit, bitch, says Storm. That moment made me laugh when she said that, says Storm. Brief fight ensues. Moné walks out of the ring. Storm wears Moné's cowboy hat and dances around, says eat shit, bitch again. Cut to AEW World Champion Jon Moxley. He's talking about the Texas Death match for the AEW World Title on Saturday against Hangman Adam Page. Says that it's a war of attrition. You're all the way in, says Moxley. Cuts to who I call the Young Sucks, Matt and Nick Jackson. Their real tag team name's the Young Bucks, but I call them the Young Sucks because they're heels. I mean, after what they did to Tony Khan, yeah. Cuts to the Young Sucks with their Founding Fathers limo making their way into the ring. Cuts to Bandito and Brody King versus Kyle the Protostar and Konosuke the Alpha of the Don Callis family, with Don Callis and Lance the Murder Hawk. Kyle the Protostar, his real name's Kyle Fletcher, and but I call him, because he's part of the Don Callis family and they're heels, I call him Kyle the Protostar. He's Kyle Fletcher, but to me, he's Kyle the Protostar. I got a feeling that they're pronouncing this other guy's name wrong. Like, I call him Konosuke the Alpha, but I don't know. Yeah, they're pronouncing his last name as Takeshita, but I think that they're pronouncing it wrong. I don't know. For the longest time, I always thought that it was pronounced Takeshita. Or maybe, I don't know. At first, I thought that it was Takeshita, but then everybody else is pronouncing it Takeshita, so I just call him Konosuke the Alpha, and it went to all the other members of the Don Callis family, like Kyle the Protostar. That's why I call him that name instead of Kyle Fletcher. It's just, that's how, this business, that's how it all, goes down. But anyways, yeah, the Don Callis family, Kyle the Protostar and Konosuke the Alpha of the Don Callis family, with Don Callis and Lance the Murder Hawk, who, his real name's Lance Archer, but I call him Lance the Murder Hawk because he's a part of the Don Callis family. And Lance the Murder Hawk accompanying Konosuke and Kyle. Don Callis joins to do commentary on the announce table. Match summary and spots I like. All four men put up a decent showing in the beginning. Bandito and Brody King do suicide dives / suicidas on Kyle Fletcher. Konosuke the Alpha does another suicide dive / suicide on Bandito. Brody King does another suicide dive / suicide on Kyle the Protostar and on the Konosuke the Alpha. Nothing but suicide dive / suicidas for most of the match. Kyle and Konosuke each do dual kicks on King, then on Bandito, cut to commercial break. All four men do a decent showing so far. King does a cannonball on Kyle the Protostar. King grabs a hold on Kyle the Protostar. Bandito does a frog splash on Konosuke the Alpha for a near fall due to Kyle the Protostar escaping King's grasp. Kyle the Protostar pushes King near the Timekeeper's area. King tries to clobber Kyle the Protostar on the Timekeeper's area barrier, but nobody home as Kyle moves out of the way for King to bang himself over the timekeeper's area barrier. Call the Pro Stars super kicks King over the barrier. Bandito jumps on Kyle over the top ring rope. Another nobody home moment when Konosuke the Alpha moves out of the way when Bandito attempts a spinning leap over Konosuke the Alpha. Konosuke the Alpha does a raging fire and lands a complete match. And lands a complete pinfall to win the match. Post-match, Cal helps Call the Pro Star. Call the Pro Star and Konosuke the Alpha celebrate their victory with Cal's in the middle of the ring. Cuts to video package with the Outrunners. Cuts to commercial break. Cuts to Renee Paquette with FTR. Stokely hat the win. Christian Cage and the Patriarchy regarding tomorrow night's match on Collision against the Outrunners and Jet Speed. Cage praises FTR for their efforts as of lately. Hathaway hates the fact that FTR aren't included on the tag team title match this Saturday All In, which is a three-way match between champions of the Hurt Syndicate, Jet Speed, and the Patriarchy. But Warner's want to go down tomorrow night's Collision. Hathaway shakes hands with Cage and walks away with FTR. Cage wipes his hand on his jacket. Then we cut to Ricochet versus Blake Christian. Spots that I liked and a match summary. Christian appears in the video to talk about how his tag team partner Lee Johnson won't be cleared to compete and calls out Ricochet. Ricochet acts like a coward, letting Christian being up for most of the match. Christian does a suicide dive / suicide on Ricochet. The Gates of Agony, they appear to distract Christian. Ricochet pushes Christian on the steel stairs. Commercial break. Some hard hits at first, but Ricochet and Christian take each other down, only for Christian land it for an attempted pinfall on Ricochet. But Ricochet kicks out of the pinfall. The Gates of Agony, they continue to watch the match unfold. Christian does a 450 splash on Ricochet for a near fall. Christian lands on the LED display barrier, kicks a member of the Gates of Agony in the face, walks on both of their backs to get into the ring. Ricochet does a vertigo move on Christian and lands the complete pinfall to win the match. Post-match, Gates of Agony teams up to take down Christian. All three men stay on the edge of the ring and then walk away. Cut to Renee Paquette with the Hurt Syndicate. MJF talks smack towards Mark Briscoe. MVP, Shelton Benjamin, and Bobby Lashley. They all walk away. Then MJF and Paquette follow to be greeted by a message written on a whiteboard and a marker that says, "Hey Shelton, since I already pinned you on Collision, figured that we take the belts early. Sincerely, Jet Speed." Somebody's about to die, says MVP. Cuts a video package of who I like to call Bitchmaker Okada. Oh my goodness. I mean, his real name's the Rainmaker, but I call him Bitchmaker because he's a heel. He's a part of the Don Callis family. So yeah, there's that. Anyways, but yeah, Bitchmaker Okada, as I like to call him, much like the other guy, Konosuke the Alpha, I call him, Bitchmaker Okada, because, he's a heel, and I always get the feeling that they're pronouncing his name wrong too, but I don't know. At first, I thought that his real name would be Kazuchika Okada, but they pronounce it as Kazuchika Okada. They pronounce it as Kazuchika Okada. I thought that they were wrong, and I thought that it was Kazuchika Okada, but then Bitchmaker Okada applied. I mean, I didn't come up with that nickname. Excalibur, who does commentary for AEW, he came up with that nickname on last year's episode of Blood and Guts. Oh my goodness. What an interesting little nickname for Bitchmaker Okada. But anyways, we come to the video package of Bitchmaker Okada and Kenny Omega for the AEW Unified title, and the winner takes all match this Saturday on All In. Cut to commercial break. MJF and Mark Briscoe's final talky talk before All In. a brief summary and some spots that I like. Both men make their entry into the ring. Crowd chants Tiny Pickle. MJF calls Talky Talk the dumbest shit that he's ever heard in his life. MJF calls Briscoe a white trash, dumbass, redneck hick.
Hey Mario, don't forget to take some Tylenol.
Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Or some of those pain relievers.
All right. Sorry about that. That was my Aunt Sammy interrupting, but
Alright, I didn't know you were doing something.
that's okay. Again, I'm sorry. That's the hard thing when you're living with somebody. You're afraid that they're going to interrupt you, which in this case they did. But I'm doing a live stream, but yeah, for those of you who just came in, welcome to my live stream of WHAM A Week in Wrestling, where I go over what went down in the week of pro wrestling, and that was my aunt telling me to take pain relievers due to the sunburns that I got yesterday at Adventure Park, the water park that I went to for my little cousin Eric's 8th birthday. But then afterwards, we went to my Nino's house, Jimmy's house, to eat chicken and sandwiches and some mashed potatoes and gravy. Yeah, it was a fun time. But anyways, where did I leave off at? Oh yes, MJF and Mark Briscoe's final talkie talk before All In. A couple spots I like. Both men make their entry into the ring. Crowd chants Tiny Pickle. MJF calls Talkie Talk the dumbest shit that he's ever heard in his life. MJF calls Briscoe a white trash, dumbass, redneck hick. MJF says, "Howdy, y'all," in a way that all the crowd can understand. Does a southern accent to imitate Briscoe's lingo. Crowd chants, "Shut the fuck up." MJF trashes Briscoe's home state of Delaware by calling it Trashy Trash Delaware. MJF continues to imitate Briscoe. Briscoe says that MJF needs a good old ass whooping. Crowd chants Talky Talk. Briscoe calls MJF a rich guy, then says that he's bankrupt. Calls it the word of the day. Briscoe mentions his late brother Jay Briscoe. MJF says that there's a special place in heaven for Jay Briscoe, but also says that he's rolling in his fucking grave, which was censored for TBS. Says that he somehow made it in the flesh tonight. Then he'd be saying chicken. Should have been me in the accidents. It shouldn't have been me in the act. MJF also says that if he somehow makes it in the flesh tonight, then he'd be saying chicken. It shouldn't have been me in the accident, and that it should have been you. Briscoe gets upset about that and starts beating up MJF. The Earth Syndicate appear. Jet Speed fall to beat up Benjamin and Lashley. MJF runs into the Timekeeper's area to run away from the ring while Mark Briscoe follows him. Kevin Knight picks up a tag team title and whacks Benjamin in the face with it. Kevin Knight and Speedball Mike Bailey push Benjamin right onto the steel stairs. Bailey kicks Benjamin onto the steel stairs. Knight and Bailey do a high five and go after Lashley. Speedball Mike Bailey and Kevin Knight do a dual kick on Lashley. Lashley and Benjamin both lie helpless with Jet Speed pushing Benjamin into another pair of steel stairs. Jet Speed continued to beat up Benjamin while Christian Cage and the Patriarchy appear. Cage and Kip Sabian grab a hold of Lashley, then push him into the barrier. Kip Sabian and Nick Wayne push MVP onto the barrier on the other side. Sabian and Wayne then push Lashley again into the barrier from MVP's side. Cage beats up MVP with a chair. Sabian grabs a hold of another chair for Cage to do a concerto onto Lashley's knee. Wayne does a second concerto onto Lashley's knee. Cage then does a third concerto onto Lashley's knee. Knight sends Benjamin back into the ring for Bailey to do a spinning kick on Benjamin. Knight does a UFO splash onto Benjamin. Jet Speed and the Patriarchy stand in front of each other to prepare for their three-way tag team match at All In on Saturday, where they face each other off along with the champions, the Hurt Syndicate. Cuts to DraftKings promo with Renee Paquette and RJ City. Megan Bayne versus Ty Mello versus Queen Aminata versus Tekla for the second spot of the Women's Casino Gauntlet match at All In this Saturday with Chris Statlander watching on. Spots that I like. All four women put up a solid beginning. Tekla jumps from the top of the ring onto Bayne and Mello. Aminata then falls to jump onto everybody to clear the field. Aminata pushes Tekla onto the barrier, cut to commercial break. All the bodies continuing to slam onto each other by running and pushing into each other. Aminata lifts Tekla up to do a vertical suplex that lands, and it leads to an attempted pinfall, but Tekla kicks out the pinfall. Aminata and Mello team to take down Bayne, causing Bayne to land outside the ring. Bayne throws Tekla right onto Mello and Aminata. Bayne then does a suicide dive / suicide to clear the field. Mello does a vicious knee to Bayne's face. Mello goes after Bayne, but her partner Penelope Ford pushes Bayne out of the way. Tekla then does her toxic spider stretch, then does a spear on Mello, attempts a pinfall on Mello, only for Aminata to break it up by kicking Tekla in the back of the head. Aminata kicks Tekla in the face quite viciously while Tekla is hanging onto the bottom ring rope. Ford tries to interfere, but Anna Jay gives her a beating. Bayne takes down Aminata in such a rough and cool way to land a complete pinfall, win the match, and land the second spot in the Women's Casino Gauntlet match on this Saturday's All In. Post-match, Statlander applauds Bayne for her efforts. Cut to Excalibur on the announce table, wishing a best of luck to the people of Central Texas. After a disaster happened on that area, he wanted to wish everybody the best of luck in Central Texas after what happened. Then cut to commercial break. Cut to Paquette with Tekla saying that she didn't make the second spot at the Women's Casino Gauntlet match at All In on Saturday. Aminata appears out of nowhere to give Tekla a beating. Briscoe then appears to scream and yell about the Men's Casino Gauntlet match. Paquette then laughs at what just happened and shrugs her arms. The Ops is Samoa Joe versus the Death Riders is Wheeler Yuta. Match summary and spots that I like. Solid beginning to the match. Joe repeatedly punches Yuta in the face. Yuta absolutely misses Joe by attempting to leap on him. Yuta does a dropkick on Joe, causing Joe to roll outside of the ring. Yuta misses Joe again by leaping out of the ring in another attempt to land on Joe. Yuta lies helplessly as Joe watches on. Cut to commercial break. Both men putting on a really good showing with Joe being the better man. Yuta attempts to do a German suplex on Joe, then bites Joe in the ear, attempts a pinfall, but Joe does a submission hold on Yuta, causing Yuta to tap out and allow Joe to win the match. Post-match, Gabe Kidd appears out of nowhere to attack Joe and scare the referee away from the ring. Kidd and Yuta continue to attack Joe. Powerhouse and Katsuyori Shibata appear to scare off Kidd and Yuta away from the ring. Then we cut to our main event, which is the Young Sucks and the Death Riders as John Moxley and Claudio Castagnoli versus Will Ospreay, Hangman Adam Page, and the Opses, Powerhouse Hobbs and Katsuyori Shibata in an all-star 8-man tag team match. Match summary / spots that I liked. Marina Shafir joins Moxley and Castagnoli as they make their way in the ring. Page starts the match to immediately take out everybody in his path. Young Sucks being absolute show-offs. Of course, they're the Young Sucks. They're heels. They're not the Young Bucks. They're the Young Sucks, in my opinion. Oh, my goodness. Ospreay jumps on the Young Sucks and dominates over the Sucks. Ospreay jumps from Hobbs' back onto the Young Sucks, then goes for a pinfall attempt, only for the Death Riders to break it up. Freaking Death Riders. They're killing AEW right now. They're really killing AEW anyways. All 8 men duking out for a moment. Ospreay clears most of the field. Paige then falls to clear more of the field. Paige confronts Shafir, cuts a commercial break. Castagnoli attempts to ram Ospreay, but Ospreay moves out of the way for Castagnoli to bump his shoulder onto the ring post. Paige mowing down the field. A table gets brought in the match. The Young Sucks attempts a super kick, but Paige reverses it and mows down the Young Sucks. Hobbs and Castagnoli do a brief confrontation and then beat each other up. Young Sucks does their signature super kick on Paige. And Ospreay does it on the Sucks. Yeah, I feel like the super kick, that's the Young Sucks' most popular move. That's like their signature move right here. Which is why early on the show, whenever there was a wrestler on Raw or NXT that did a super kick, I referred to it as a Young Sucks so-called lead style super kick because that's the Young Sucks' move in my opinion. But yeah, anyways, where was I? The Young Sucks does their signature super kick on Paige, and Ospreay does it on the Sucks. The Sucks does it to Ospreay, then 2 super kicks to Hobbs. Then a third super kick in which Moxley and Castagnoli grab onto Hobbs and throw him right onto the table. The Sucks does the EVP trigger on Shibata. Moxley does a submission hold on Shibata, causing Shibata to tap out and allow the Death Riders and the Young Sucks to win the match. Post-match, Moxley continues to strangle Shibata. Paige attacks Moxley. Castagnoli piles on top of Paige. Most of the fighters and Gabe Kidd attack Paige. Maria Shafir gives John Moxley a chain. Moxley strangles Paige with the chain. Ospreay comes to his aid. More fighting ensues. Shafir gives the Young Sucks bags in an attempt to suffocate Paige and Ospreay. Swerve Strickland appears on the screen, appearing to drive a vehicle of some sort. This is how vengeance breeds. Yeah, that was my phone that went off. Anyways, this is how vengeance breeds, says Swerve Strickland. The vehicle that Strickland drives turns out to be an excavator. He crushes the Young Sucks limo with it. He crushes the Young Sucks' limo with it. The people in the ring continue to go at it with each other. Ospreay clears most of the field. Strickland then flips off the Young Sucks and says, "Whose house?" That's his famous, catchphrase. After halfway there on landing the limo on its side, the limo was on its, not quite on its side, but it was right here. That was where the limo was at. But yeah, anyways, Paige attempts to strangle Moxley with the chain, but Shafir pushes Moxley out of the way. Paige attempts to whip Moxley with the chain, but misses. Paige's theme plays. The Death Riders and the Young Sucks, they all retreat. The Sucks see their now destroyed limo. Prince Nana appears to troll the Sucks and say that their limo can't ever be fixed. Strickland appears to jump on the Sucks. Paige's theme continues to play with the chain wrapped around it. The Death Riders and the Kid, Paige's theme continues to play with the chain wrapped around him. The Death Riders and Gabe Kidd continue to retreat. Strickland enters into the arena with Nana and gives Ospreay a high-five hug. Strickland confronts Paige for a brief moment with Ospreay and Nana on his side as AEW goes off the air. Overall, a fun go-home show before Saturday night's big pay-per-view of All In. Some really solid matches. All of the wrestlers put up an entertaining showing. This episode was a great hit. So yeah, I remember AEW Dynamite as I was watching the show. I do remember liking it a whole lot. This week's episode, and it was just a whole lot of fun, that episode of Dynamite. It really was. So far, we got a decent episode of NXT, a really good episode of Raw, and a really good episode of AEW Dynamite. Now, let's move on to WWE Evolve. So WWE Evolve starts with Timothy Thatcher versus Keanu Carver. A bit of a match summary and spots that I like. Both men put up a decent showing throughout the match. Thatcher stretches out Carver for a little bit with a submission hold. Carver throws Thatcher backwards quite violently, causing him to roll fly into the center of the ring. Thatcher stretches Carver's arm, but Carver reaches the bottom rope, causing a break to the hold. Carver tackles Thatcher while they were running in different directions. Carver repeatedly shoves Thatcher's head into the edge of the ring, causing the match to end in a DQ. Post-match, security comes in to separate Carver from Thatcher. Cut to the Vanity Project. Coming off of last night's loss to Ricky Saints on NXT in that gauntlet match, Evolve PM Stevie Turner appears to tell Jackson Drake that he's got a title match against Lince Dorado on next week's show with the contract signed tonight. Jordan Oasis appears to tell Drake with the announcement. Cut to commercial break. Next match on the show, we got Chantel Monroe versus Mason Holiday. Match summary, spots that I like. Yeah, match summary and spots that I like. Holiday appears with Layla Diggs on her side. Both put up a solid enough showing, although nothing really that spectacular. However, Holiday takes down Monroe 3 times, followed by a frog splash for a 2 count. Monroe takes down Holiday quite violently to land the complete pinfall and win the match. Post-match, Monroe cuts a promo about her relationship with Diggs for a brief moment, followed by her goal for the Evolve Women's title, following the main event with whoever walks out of the match with the title, be it either Natalya or current champion Callie Armstrong. Kylie Ray appears to congratulate Monroe on her victory, as well as the Evolve Women's title. LFG first season winner Tyra May Steele appears. I mean, she did get the NXT contract, but I don't know why she's on Evolve. That don't make no sense to me, Triple H. What are we doing here? What are we doing, folks? But yeah, anyway, LFG first season winner Tyra May Steele appears to also talk about the title. Monroe attacks Ray and tries to do the same with Steele, but Steele misses. Then it does a German suplex on Monroe. Steele dominates over Ray and Steele. Cut to Chewy Martinez. Chewy Martinez trying to get word with Evolve PM Stevie Turner regarding. Yeah, PM stands for Prime Minister. Yeah, Evolve Prime Minister Stevie Turner, just like Raw GM Adam Pearce. GM stands for General Manager, so Raw GM Adam Pearce, SmackDown GM Nick Aldis. But, we cut to Chewy Martinez trying to get word with Evolve PM Stevie Turner regarding Thatcher's condition while he's at a medic. Turner says that Thatcher's not doing good. Rich Hall from NXT appears to say that he wants to hurt Thatcher, but Turner refuses that match. Tate Walder appears to confront Holland, but Turner's busy with the contract signing for later on tonight. Then walks away. Cut to Evolve Women's Champion Callie Armstrong as she prepares for a title match against Natalya later on tonight. Cut to commercial break. Cut to Wendy Chu for a brief bit. Jackson Drake versus Lince Dorado for the Evolve World title in a contract signing. Brief summary and spots that I like. Evolve PM Stevie Turner appears with the table for the signing. Drake appears with the rest of the Vanity. Jackson Drake appears with the rest of the Vanity Project and the title wrapped around his waist. Both guys talk some smack to each other for a bit before they sign the contract. Dorado says that any interference from the other members of the Vanity Project will end up with a DQ and allow Dorado to be the new Evolve World Champion. Dorado sings what he calls the Vanity Project's new theme song, which is that song, na 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 na, hey, 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 goodbye. But yeah, na na, hey, hey, kiss him goodbye. That sets off Jackson Drake. The other members of the Vanity Project try to separate Drake from Dorado while he's singing and trolling him. Drake takes off his shirt. Dorado gives Drake a 2 thumbs down. Drake continues to yell at Dorado. Drake continues to yell at Dorado while he's trolling him. Cut to Natalya preparing for her Evolve Women's title match against current champion Callie Armstrong. Cuts to Kilgore and Carly Bright doing a conversation with each other, and really a nothing conversation in my opinion. Cuts to Chewy Martinez with Super Shawn Legacy to give an update on Thatcher's condition, saying that it's pretty bad, then calls out Carver for a bit and then walks away with Martinez, now left by himself. Saying more of what's going on, then cut to rundown of next week's show. Callie Armstrong, in the main event, we got Callie Armstrong versus Natalya for the Evolve Women's title. A bit of a summary and spots that I like. Both put up an alright showing at the beginning. Natalya stretches Armstrong quite a bit throughout the match, cut to commercial break. Armstrong does a spear on Natalya as she's on the turnbuckle cushions. As soon as we get back from commercial break, Armstrong continues to give Natalya quite a vicious beating. Both ladies continue to beat each other up, although nothing really groundbreaking in my opinion. However, Natalya does the ankle lock on Armstrong, who escapes from it. Both ladies doing countless falls to each other. Armstrong body slams Natalya, tries to do it again. She tries to do it again, but misses, only to be greeted by a sharpshooter by Natalya. Armstrong reaches the bottom rope to bring up the sharpshooter. Armstrong does the Callie connection on Natalya, which almost causes her to roll out of the ring, but Armstrong drags Natalya back into the ring and pins Natalya to land the complete pinfall, win the match and retain the title. Post-match, Armstrong offers Natalya a handshake, but Natalya instead gives Armstrong a hug. They both raise their hands. Jen Tala appears to attack Armstrong and hold the Evolve Women's title and says that she'll demolish anybody who stands in her way as Evolve goes off the air. Overall, nothing special of an episode. These wrestlers can do a little better than they did tonight. The post-match after Monroe versus Holiday was better than the match itself. Contract signing was the best segment on the show, and it was more verbal than physical, but Lindsay Dorado and Jackson Drake somehow handled the segment better verbally than what the wrestlers on the actual matches did physically. I get that Evolve happens to be the developmental brand to the developmental brand, which is NXT, but I've seen these wrestlers put up better matches than what was showcased on tonight's episode. This episode was an adequate hit. Yeah, I do remember the show being not that great, not that bad. It was right in the middle. It was a mid episode of WWE Evolve. Already an hour into the stream, as I now discuss TNA Impact. Show starts with the personal concierge introducing the Elegance brand as they do their match against Harley Hudson and Myla Grace, along with the video and Grace and Hudson, seeing that they want to get a hold of the TNA Knockouts World Tag Team titles. And by Elegance also appears on their side. A couple spots. I mean, it was really a nothing match. I didn't really care for this match. Here's a bit of a summary that I could get from this nothing match. All four women put up an alright showing throughout the match, although nothing that impressive. Not much of nothing to say about this match. The Elegance brand wins the match. Nothing happens post-match. Cuts to Gia Miller with the Hardys and the Rascals talking about the main event. Cut to commercial break. Cedric Alexander and the Great Hands versus Mustafa Ali's Secret Service. Brief match summary / spots that I like. This match was a little bit better than the other match, but I don't know. So yeah, sorry, I was just, my face, itches quite a bit, but anyways, sorry about that, folks. But anyway, here's a brief match summary and spots that I liked. Solid beginning to the match when Alexander gets tagged in. When Cedric Alexander gets tagged in, then he takes down the entire Secret Service. The Great Hands, they help to take down the entire Secret Service. Cedric Alexander does a knee to the face, and Cedric Alexander does a knee to the back of a member of the Secret Service and pins him to win the match. Post-match, Ali goes on a rampage with a chair in his hand. Tasha Steele gives a low blow to Alexander, which means that she may now side with Mustafa Ali. Ali hits Alexander in the back with a chair, steals, and Ali walk away from the ring. Cut to commercial break. Masha Slamovich and Lei Lee versus NXT's JC Jane and Fallon Henley from Fatal Influence. Zaya Brookside joins alongside Lee and Slamovich. Jasmine Nix joins alongside Henley and Jane. A couple spots that I like. Slamovich and Lee shine throughout the match. Excuse me. Yeah, I just ate a cup of noodles for dinner right now, but anyways. Spots that I liked and a bit of a match summary. Slamovich and Lee shine throughout the match. Henley and Jane take down Lee and vicious kicks to the face and center outside of the ring. Cut to commercial break. All four women continue to do a couple kind of cool moves here and there. Henley takes down Lee with a hardcore kick to the face, then pins Lee for a 2 count. Pins Lee 2 more times for 2 more 2 counts. So trying to pin her 3 times, but it all led to 2 counts. But anyways, Henley screams at the referee. Fatal Influence continues to dominate over Lee. Henley does a submission hold on Lee, but Lee emerges from the hole. Lee continues to struggle to make a tag with Slamovich. Slamovich finally gets a tag and takes down both JC Jane and Fallon Henley. Masha Slamovich pins Jane for a 2 count. All four women put up a solid showing. Fatal Influence dominates over Lee and Slamovich. Slamovich takes down Henley to land the complete pinfall and win the match. Post-match, Slamovich grabs the TNA Knockouts World title. Slamovich, Lee, and Brookside all raise their hands at the center of the ring. They all celebrate while Jane yells at the winners. Cut to an injury report. Yeah, the TNA, they usually do an injury report of whoever's injured and all that sort of stuff. Nothing really that important, but anyways, well, the injuries, yeah, let's hope that they recover, but to me, it's not really that important of a segment. It's just, who's been injured and whatnot, but yeah, whatever. Anyways, cut to commercial break, cut to Slammiversary promo highlighting the beginning of TNA and the X Division title. Cut to Leon Slater in the system regarding Moose and Slater's match for the X Division title at Slammiversary on July 20th. Slater walks away. Matt Cardona appears and says that he needs backup, but the system laugh at him and walk away. Then it cuts to, in my opinion, the best match of the show on TNA. Steve Macklin versus Jake Something versus Mance Warner for the TNA International title. Match summary spots that I like. Mance Warner makes his usual intro with Seth Delander on his side. Jake Something already goes after Warner when making his intro before Macklin can be introduced into the match. Macklin quickly makes his intro. Ring announcer Mackenzie Mitchell introduces Macklin very quickly, immediately followed by the bell ring to officially start the match. Macklin takes out Warner, followed by Something taking out both men. Warner grabs a chair and takes out both Something and Macklin. Warner continues to beat up Macklin repeatedly with the chair. Seth Delander gives Warner another chair. Warner sets up both chairs by each other. Something gives Warner a beating and throws Warner into the steel stairs. Something pins Warner only for Delander to put Warner's foot on the bottom rope. Delander saying that she didn't do nothing. All three men continuing to put up an entertaining showing. They all continue to beat each other up in the most violent ways possible. Something tries to run over Warner, but it's a nobody home moment as Delander pulls Warner out of the way for Something to land on the steel stairs. Warner tears apart the stairs for him to bash Something's head in. And she does that by doing DDT on Something right onto the stairs. Macklin takes down Something quite violently to go for the complete pinfall, win the match, and retain the TNA International title. Nothing happens post-match. Cut to Mustafa Ali, the Great Hands, and Tasha Steelz as they do a brief confrontation with each other. They all prepare for Slammiversary on July 20th. They want to get the band back together after a lot of disagreements. The system appear with Alicia Edwards doing her usual, "Do you want to know something?" Oh, Alicia Edwards is annoying. I'm sorry. I don't know how anybody would be married to Alicia Edwards. Like Eddie Edwards of the system. Oh my goodness. She's annoying. I don't know how Eddie Edwards can put up with Alicia Edwards. I don't know. She's annoying. I mean, she looks nice, but her voice is really annoying. But anyways, the System appear with Alicia Edwards doing her usual "Do you want to know something?" bit. The System and Aura 4 will duke it out next week to see who's the better tag team. Cuts to an ad for Fourth Row, which is like an album or whatever, like a music album. Cut to commercial break. Cut to video package with Mike Santana as he prepares for his match against Trick Williams and Joe Hendry for the TNA World Title at Slammiversary on July 20th. Cut to Indy Hartwell versus Vicky Crawford. Well, they call her Victoria Crawford, but I like to call her Vicky Crawford. But yeah, it was a. I do remember this match being pretty decent. Summary / spots that I like. Tessa Blanchard accompanies Crawford. Blanchard joins on commentary on the announce table for this match. The fans is giving Crawford a thumbs down. She gives a thumbs down back. Crawford runs around the ring. Hartwell chases after her. Hartwell and Blanchard talk smack towards each other. Hartwell lands her throat on the middle rope. Blanchard hits her in the face. Hartwell pins Crawford very easily to land a complete pinfall and win the match. Post-match, Blanchard talks smack towards Hartwell. "You're not undeniable and impressive. You're nothing more than forgettable," says Blanchard. Both stand there for a bit of a connotation. Cut to TNA Director of Authority, Santino Marella, and his daughter. I don't remember his daughter's name. The Northern Armory come in with the hometown man's mask, trying to prove that he's actually Cody Deaner, because Cody Deaner fought his last match on TNA, and it was supposed to be the end of his run, but now he's back as the hometown man. I don't know. But yeah, the Northern Armory come in with the hometown's mask, trying to prove that he's actually Cody Deaner, disguising himself in a different persona. Marella refuses to believe it unless he's got actual proof. Marella walks away with his daughter. The Northern Armory continue to search for proof that the hometown man happens to be Cody Deaner in a disguise under a different persona. Cut to commercial break. Cut to rundown of next week's episode of TNA Impact. Cut to interview with Joe Hendry as he prepares. Yeah, I believe in Joe Hendry. Oh my goodness, he's becoming a viral sensation towards wrestling, but yeah. Cut to interview with Joe Hendry as remember when he won the title at Genesis? He beat Nick Nemeth for it, but then Trick Williams beat him on Battleground to become the new champion. Oh my goodness. Now they're doing that storyline with Trick Williams being the champion of TNA, who's, even though he's an NXT star, but NXT and TNA, they got that partnership going on with WWE, and it's just crazy stuff. But cut to an interview with Joe Hendry as he prepares for the TNA World Title match against Mike Santana and current champion Trick Williams at Slammiversary on July 20th. The Hardys and the Rascals versus First Class and the Nemeths as the main event, with Trick Williams on commentary. Match summary / spots that I liked. Trick Williams joins on commentary at the announce table and brags that he's the greatest TNA champion of all time, and he needs to be respected as such in the current Trick NA era, is what he's putting it as such as of lately. Matt Hardy pushes Nick Nemeth before the bell rings. Cut to commercial break. As the bell rings, all 8 men put up a decent beginning. Cut to commercial break. Matt Hardy does the usual delete move on Nick Nemeth, followed by AJ Francis. Jeff Hardy takes out the Nemeths. Matt Hardy attempts to jump on Francis, but Francis catches him and lifts him up to do a vertical suplex on him. Trick Williams beats up a member of the Rascals with the TNA World Title. Francis pins Hardy to get the complete pinfall and win the match. Post-match, Williams in first class. They all beat up Matt Hardy, Mike Santana, and later on, Joe Hendry. Williams in first class, they're beating up Matt Hardy. And then Mike Santana, and then later on, Joe Hendry, they come in and help out Matt Hardy and give Williams in first class a beating. All three men are separated. All of the men who are in the ring right now, all men are separated as TNA Impact goes off the air. Overall, the opening match was forgettable and left me with not much nothing to say. It was that unimpressive in my opinion. Warner versus Something versus Macklin for the TNA International title was the best match on the show. All the other matches may put up a solid fight for what they were. This episode was a good hit. All right, now move on to AEW Collision, which normally airs on Saturday, but they aired it on Thursday due to the pay-per-view. But yeah, AEW Collision show starts with Kyle the Protostar, or Kyle Fletcher, but I call him Kyle the Protostar, and RPG Vice, which is Trent, the former best friend, or Trent Beretta, and Rocky, the supposed Azukar of the Don Callis family, or who I call, well, yeah, his real name is Rocky Romero, but I call him Rocky, the supposed Azukar, due to his alliance with the Don Callis family. But anyway, those three guys from the Don Callis family versus Paragon, with Don Callis joining on commentary. Bit of a match summary / spots that I like. All six men put up a solid showing, although nothing that's really that mind blowing. The announce table gets involved for a team bid, cut to commercial break. Nothing too impressive. I mean, it's just kind of the same cliche moves that we've seen from these guys before. It's just the same old cliches. Paragon wins the match. Post-match, all three men reach their arms up with Adam Cole holding the TNT title in his hand. Cole the Pro Star runs on to Cole, but Cole scares him off with the TNT title. Cole wants to fight with Kyle the Pro Star, but Don Callis repeatedly yells out, "Don't do it!" I do remember that moment. Don't do it. Kyle the Pro Star walks away as Cole's theme plays. Cole also walks away with his crew of Paragon. Cut to after last night's Dynamite with the Death Riders. You gotta be either all in or all out, says Moxley. Gabe Kidd becomes the newest member of the Death Riders. That's what, according to commentary, Tony Schiavone said. A brief rundown of All In on Saturday. Cut to techniques by Taz Sigmund on Mystico. Cut to video page of Harley Cameron doing a commercial of I Drink. Cut to commercial break. Cut to last week's episode of Collision in a video package with the return of Scorpio Sky, as well as Christopher Daniels, Layla Gray, and Top Flight to form Sky Flight Team. And then cut to Mystico versus LFI's The Beast Mortos, La Facción Ingobernable. But yeah, LFI's The Beast Mortos versus Mystico. A bit of a match summary and spots that I like. Mortos already starting things rough for Mystico when the bell rings. Mystico tries to jump on Mortos, but Mortos catches him on time. Mystico continues to do some nice moves on Mortos. Both men continue to beat each other up. Cut to commercial break. Both men put up a solid showing. Mortos is in need to Mystico's gut, then pins Mystico for a 2 count. Both men put up a decent showing. Mystico does a spinning move followed by submission hold that causes Mortos to tap him out, thus allowing Mystico to win the match. Post-match, as Mystico celebrates his victory, MJF appears on screen wearing a Mystico mask, then he takes off the mask to reveal his face. Talking about the men's Casino Gauntlet match at All In on Saturday. He also threatens to take off all of Mystico's masks till he hasn't got no choice but to show the world his ugly face. See you on Saturday, says Mystico. Mystico continues on with his celebration with his theme music playing in the background. Cut to Mark Briscoe talking about how he'll win the men's Casino Gauntlet match at AEW All In on Saturday, and how MJF made it personal for him when he mentioned his brother Jay Briscoe's name on Dynamite last night. Cut to Renee. In my opinion, this was a heartfelt segment on Collision. Cut to Renee Paquette with Hangman Adam Page bringing a chain in his hand with him. The cat wants to know more about Paige. Paige said that he loved to talk about it, but just not with her. Paige walks to Swerve Strickland's locker room with Strickland, Prince Nana, and Will Ospreay in the locker room. Strickland and Page get into an altercation, but Ospreay quickly breaks it up. Page asks for 2 minutes with Strickland. Ospreay says okay and leaves the room. Nana also leaves the room to get a cup of coffee. That was a funny bit of levity in an otherwise heartfelt moment on this show. Yeah, this was a pretty heartfelt moment on this show. I felt it kind of touched my feelings a little bit. But yeah, anyways, Page wants a simple sit down conversation with Strickland. He's still not asking for Swerve Strickland's help. I mean, let's face it, this whole rivalry thing between Swerve Strickland and Hangman Adam Page, just yeah, it's quite a rivalry. But yeah, my goodness. Anyways, Page still isn't asking for Swerve Strickland's help. Page wants to know if Strickland regrets what he did to him. Strickland replies at first no, but after all that happened, he says yes. Page walks away, but Strickland talks about his burned down home, says he's got to let go of the past after all. Page walks away again. Strickland sits back down and grabs the chain that Page left behind, wraps it around his fist. Cut to Tony Schiavone and Nigel McGuinness at the announce table. Yeah, that was a pretty heartfelt segment with Page and Strickland. Maybe they're setting up more of a rivalry. Maybe they might set up not really a friendship, but more of just like an alliance. Let's put it that way. But anyways, cut to Tony Schiavone and Nigel McGuinness at the announce table as the Death Riders, they come in. What the hell was that? What kind of baby crap was that? Says Jon Moxley. Moxley talking about the AEW World Title match between him and Hangman Adam Page on Saturday at All In. Maria Shafir calls Hangman Adam Page a couple of names that's censored on TNT. Moxley calls out Page. Prepare for Texas death, says Moxley. Moxley and Shafir walk away as Moxley gives the finger to the crowd. Cut to DraftKings promo with Renee Paquette and RJ City. Sorry, my face is all itching, but anyways. FTR and Christian Cage and the Patriarchy versus Jet Speed and the Outrunners. Summary / spots that I like. Stokely Hathaway's now got a new nickname. Big Stoke. Yeah. Nickname might take some getting used to, but I don't know. But I don't know about Stokely Hathaway's new nickname, Big Stoke. What's Tony Khan doing with AEW? I don't know. Anyway, Tony Schiavone is now wearing an FTR jacket with Dax Harwood on guest commentary. All 8 men put up a solid showing as the match begins. Nick Wayne's acting like a coward and needs his family to hug and support him. Oh my goodness. Kevin Knight looks at Wayne, points at him, and makes fun of him. All 8 men continue to put him in all right showing, but nothing special so far. All 8 men fight in the ring for a little bit, cut to a commercial break. Dax Harwood tries to go after Kevin Knight, but another nobody home moment as Knight moves out of the way, causing Harwood to land rough on the turnbuckle cushion. More decent showings from the wrestlers. The Outrunners, they do their usual high five gimmick, like that. Then they team up to do a double arm hit on Nick Wayne. Christian Cage grabs a member of the Outrunners. Truth Magnum and Turbo Floyd look almost the same to me, which is why I wrote that on my notes. But anyways, Christian Cage grabs a member of the Outrunners by the legs and drags his nutsack into the ring post. All 8 men continue to be solid in their showing. Cash Wheeler does a submission on Truth Magnum. The referee checks up on Magnum. Speedball by Bailey dominates over the opposing team. Bailey takes out Wheeler and then Wayne with a couple of kicks of his own. Bailey then takes out FTR and Wayne as soon as Harwood gets out of the ring. Bailey does a rotating frog splash on Harwood as Harwood gets back into the ring. Bailey pins Harwood for a 2 count as Cage breaks up the pin. All 8 men continue to shine. Cage does an inadvertent spear on his partner Harwood. The Outrunners, they do a double takedown on Cage's their advantage. Nick Wayne takes down Knight and inadvertently Wheeler. Bailey does a spinning kick on Harwood. Knight does his frog splash on Harwood with Bailey holding his foot. Bailey pins Harwood to land the complete fall and win his team the match. Post-match, the Outrunners and Jet Speed celebrate their victory, and all four men do the Outrunners high-five gimmick. Big Stokes got a hilariously disappointed look on his face. Yeah, I remember that being a funny, when he did that look on his face was just absolutely priceless. But anyway, cuts to Lexi Nair with Big Boom AJ, who calls out the Dom Callis family, brings in Big Justice and the Rizzler over. We need a team, says Big Justice, and in comes Hologram and Tomohiro Ishii, as well as the Don Callis family. There's four of us and only three of you, says Rocky the supposed Azucar. In comes Kyle O'Reilly to make the odds even with a conglomeration reunion. AJ, Justice, and O'Reilly all do the boom, 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 boom gimmick. You know, that's what the Costco guys, they're known for that. But yeah, anyways, and they all argue with each other. Cut to commercial break. Cut to FTR and Big still cutting a promo that's setting up a match at the 0 hour of All In against the Outrunners. Stoke does the top guy's out catchphrase that usually said by Harwood before walking away. The Ops is Katsuyori Shibata versus the Death Riders is Gabe Kidd in a teacher versus student match. Match summary / spots that I liked. Shibata already goes after Kidd as Kidd makes his way into the ring before the bell rings. Both men start to beat each other up as the bell rings. Kidd runs around the ring while Shibata chases after him, only to be greeted by a takedown by Kidd. Maria Shafir watches the match unfold between Shibata. Alright. Marina Shafir watches. Sorry, that was just a little thing on my computer. But anyways. Maria Shafir watches the match unfold between Shibata and her partner, Kidd. Kidd continues to give quite a vicious beating on Shibata. Cut to commercial break. Both men whip slam each other to death. Both men give their most violent blows to each other. Wheeler Yuta interferes for a bit, allowing Kidd to take out Shibata by doing a low blow that the referee didn't see, followed by a pile driver pinning Shibata to land a complete pinfall to win the match. Post-match, Yuta celebrates the victory with Kidd as they both walk away from the ring with Shibata lying there helplessly. Chris Statlander appears and joins Tony Schiavone and Nigel McGuinness on commentary at the announce table for the main event. Will Nightingale makes her intro into the ring as we cut to commercial break. The main event on this show being Will Nightingale versus Will Nightingale, Mina Shirakawa, Queen Aminata, and Thunder Rosa versus Megan Bayne, Tekla, Julia Hart, and Athena. Match summary / spots that I like. Shirakawa and Athena start off on a really entertaining note. All 8 women are putting a fun fight as the match is going on. Bayne lifts up Nightingale, then Rosa joins in. Bayne takes down both women. Bayne pushes Athena to Nightingale and Rosa. Cut to commercial break. All 8 women continue to shine. Shirakawa jumps from the top turnbuckle onto Athena and Bayne. That Tekla does a spear on Rosa. All women continue to put up a really good showing. Harden Tekla from the top turnbuckle do a double throw of Nightingale and Shirakawa. That move looked pretty cool by Julia Hart and Tekla. Yeah, as they drop Willow Knight, as they throw Willow Knight. As they do a double throw of Willow Nightingale and Mina Shirakawa from the top turnbuckle, yeah, that move looked pretty cool to me. Anyway, Tekla does her spider stretch only for Aminata to drag her out of the ring and throw her in the LED display barrier. Shirakawa does an impressive spinning move on Bayne. Athena gets involved alongside Tekla, and they both take each other down. Nightingale and Shirakawa team up to take down Hart. Nightingale pins Hart to land the complete pinfall and win her team the match. Post-match, Billy Starks and Sky Blue start a brawl on Nightingale and Rosa. Anna Jay and Ty Mello appear to beat up Hart and Blue. All the other women get involved. Statlander and Bayne do a stare down as AEW Collision goes off the air. And a nothing really video. A countdown to All In Special airs following AEW Collision. It's just a huge little video package of what's going to go down on AEW Collision on the AEW All In, the pay-per-view on Saturday. That's all that Countdown special was, really. But yeah, anyways. Overall, a really fun go-home show before All In on Saturday. Lots of good matches on this week's episode. The 8-woman tag team match was the best match on the show. All the other matches range from decent to pretty solid. Really entertaining episode this week. This episode was a great hit. And now I move on to Friday Night SmackDown. Show begins with Jelly Roll, who's greeted by Randy Orton, who wishes him good luck in the arena, followed by LA Knight making his way into the ring. He cuts a promo about his match on Saturday night's main event against Seth friggin' Rollins. I want pity, I want justice, and to be honest, I want to hurt you, says LA Knight. LA Knight calls himself the spoiler, talking about predictions and spoilers. Paul Heyman makes his way into the ring with Rollins' Money in the Bank briefcase. I can see it into the future, says Heyman. Heyman says that Knight hasn't got no future. Star Wars bloodline. Yeah, the heel bloodline of... Okay, long story. But, yeah. There's Han Solo Sikoa, real name Solo Sikoa. There's JC3PO, real name JC Mateo. There's Chewie Tonga 2.0, or Tala Tonga, that's his real name. And then Vader Loa, Tonga Loa is his real name. But yeah, they're heels, and thus, yeah, with Solo, I just like to call them the Star Wars bloodline because they're heels. I'm glad that the newly turned babyface Jacob Fatu, who I used to call Jacob Wan Kenobi, but now that he's a babyface, I call him by his real name now, Jacob Fatu. But yeah, anyways. The Star Wars bloodline make their way in the ring. Han Solo Sikoa, who I like to call him, Han Solo Sikoa talks. He's talking about things that's changing over the course of time. Han Solo Sikoa warns Paul Heyman, to leave the arena before he gets his ass kicked. Han Solo Sikoa mentions LA Knight's name. The crowd says yeah, while Sikoa says no repeatedly. Sikoa also warns Knight to leave the ring at first, Knight seems to leave the ring, but the crowd wants him to stay, and as a result, Knight's being surrounded by the Star Wars bloodline. Jimmy Uso shows up with a chair and beats up the Star Wars bloodline with it. Uso also gives Knight a chair, but the Star Wars bloodline retreat at first, but SmackDown GM Nick Aldis appears to announce a tag team match between Han Solo Sikoa and JC3PO versus Uso and Knight. That'll happen on tonight's show. Cut to Charlotte Flair and Alexa Bliss as Bliss prepares for the opening match of the show, and then we go to a commercial break. Then we get a cameo from Limp Bizkit's Fred Durst, who I know that not a lot of people like Limp Bizkit. I'm probably among the few that actually don't mind their music a little bit. Limp Bizkit. I know that their music's not for everybody, but, you know. Anyways, we get our opening match, which is Roxanne Perez versus Kairi Sane versus Sol Ruca from NXT versus Alexa Bliss in a fatal four-way match. A couple spots that I liked and a bit of a match summary. All four women do a decent job at starting the match. Ruca takes down Perez and Sane twice, cuts a commercial break. Ruca and Bliss take down Sane and Perez as the latter two were on the top as the latter two women were on the top turnbuckle. Ruca puts her feet on Perez's back and takes down Perez and pins her for a 2 count. Sane takes down Ruca from the top turnbuckle, then pins her for a 2 count. Ruca takes down Perez and Bliss, then pins Perez for Raquel Rodriguez to put Perez's foot on the bottom ring rope. Raquel Rodriguez attempts to take down Zarya, but Asuka comes by to help, and Zarya slams Rodriguez's head into the announce table. Bliss does a DDT on Sane and pins her to land the complete pinfall and win the match. Nothing happens post-match. Cut to rundown of Evolution on Sunday. Cut to the Street Profits making their way into the ring for the tag team title match against the White Six. Cut to commercial break, and then it leads to the Street Profits versus the White Six for the WWE Tag Team titles. Spots that I like. All four men start the match in a pretty simple but still enjoyable way. Cut to commercial break. All four men put up a solid fight so far. Not too great, but not too bad. Cut to commercial break. Match starts to be boring. However, there was an impressive moment where Angelo Dawkins takes out a member of the White Six and sends him into the timekeepers area. The White Six becomes the new WWE Tag Team Champions. Nothing happens post-match. Cuts to Fraxium, DIY, and the Motor City Machine Guns as they all yell at each other about how the White Six became the new Tag Team Champions. Andrade and Ray Phoenix, they later get involved. They all continue to yell at each other. Cut to people setting up drums for Jelly Roll's performance. Cut to commercial break. Cuts to video package of Gunther and Goldberg regarding the World Heavyweight title match tomorrow night on Saturday night's main event. Cut to Jelly Roll making his way to the arena doing a live performance, only to be interrupted by Logan Paul. He trash talks Jelly Roll and talks about his podcast. Roll interrupts him. Nobody gives a damn about your podcast, says Roll. Randy Orton appears and defends Jelly Roll. Randy Orton calls Logan Paul a whiny little bitch. Drew McIntyre appears to do a claymore on Randy Orton. Referees and security separate McIntyre from Orton. Paul starts to beat up Orton and takes off his jacket. Roll pulls Paul's hair and drags him out of the ring. Roll helps Orton out. Paul and Orton beat each other up. For a teeny tiny bit, as referees and security continue to separate Paul from Orton, SmackDown GM Nick Aldis now gets involved. Paul destroys the drums with the guitar. Oopsie, yells Paul. Oh my goodness. Logan Paul destroying all the music equipment, all the instruments. Sorry, my face was itching, but anyways. Yeah, that was a pretty interesting way to end off your segment with Logan Paul destroying all the instruments and whatnot. Oopsie, yells Paul. Cut to R-Truth as he prepares for his match against Aleister Black. Cut to commercial break. Cut to Roland Orton in the aftermath of Paul's interruption as they still got each other's back after the incident. R-Truth versus Aleister Black. Spots that I like. Decent start to the match. R-Truth brings a chair from the timekeepers area. Black takes the chair from Truth. Referee warns Black about a possible DQ. Truth uses the advantage to take down Black, causing Black to throw the chair away from the ring. Truth pins Black to land a complete pinfall and win the match. Post-match, Truth walks away. Black starts to go after him, but referees and security break it up. Cut to Tiffany Stratton and Trish Stratus as they enter in the ring for their segment. Cut to commercial break. Black continues to find Truth. Damian Priest stops him. They form a piece at first. Black leaves, but then comes back to give a knee to Priest's face and gives a beatdown to Priest. Referees and security show up to break it up. Cut to Wade Barrett, the commentator, with Trish Stratus and Tiffany Stratton regarding their women's title match at Evolution on Sunday. Naomi appears with her Money in the Bank briefcase. Jade Cargill appears and beats her up. Referee security and SmackDown GM Nick Aldis separate Cargill from Naomi. Cut to rundown of tomorrow night's Saturday night's main event. Cut to Jimmy Uso and LA Knight making their intros as they prepare for their match against the Star Wars Bloodline. Cut to commercial break. LA Knight and Jimmy Uso versus the Star Wars Bloodline. Match summary and spots that I like. All four men put up a very solid beginning at the beginning of the match. Hanzo Sikoa drags Jimmy Uso out of the ring, bangs his head on the announce table, then throws his whole body onto the table. That's a commercial break. All four men continued to be good for their performances. Knight tags in Uso, then does a frog splash on JC3PO. Uso does a frog splash of his own. Uso pins JC3PO, but Sikoa brings it up on the pin. JC3PO accidentally lands on the announce table. Heyman calls Breaker and Reed to the ring. Knight gets taken down by Chewy Tonga 2.0, but Uso pins Sikoa to land the complete pinfall and win the match. Forgot to highlight it on my notes. But yeah, There we go. Yeah, anyway, where was I? Uso pins Sikoa to land a complete pinfall and win the match. Post-match, the Star Wars Bloodline runs away with Uso chasing after him. Knight does the BFT on Shui Tonga 2.0. Breaker and Reed enter the ring. Breaker does a spear on Knight. Reed does a tsunami on Knight. Reed and Breaker dominate over Knight as Friday Night SmackDown goes off the air. Overall, really good opening match. Forgettable and kind of boring and cliche tag team title match. Didn't leave me with much of nothing to say. Expected the Jelly Roll segment to be just a simple live performance. Wasn't expecting Paul Orton and McIntyre to appear. All other matches was okay. Overall, above average show. This episode was a good hit. I didn't watch none of the pay-per-views this weekend. So yeah, I'm gonna go on with Wild Women of Wrestling now. Show begins with Holodead versus Santana Garrett. Spots that I like. Both women start off solidly well. Holodead does a spinning move on Garrett. Holodead continues to beat up Garrett and dominate over her. Holodead does a submission hold on Garrett, but Garrett escapes soon afterwards. Garrett and Holodead are sitting on the top rope. Holodead walks off the rope and does a submission hold on Garrett. Garrett escapes the hold, however. Garrett does her finishing move on Holodead and pins Holodead to land the complete pinfall and win the match. Post-match, Garrett gives credit to Holodead for being a heck of a competitor. She's a step closer to a title match, says Garrett. Cut to commercial break. Fury versus Nikki Nashville. Spots that I like. And match summary. Nashville already dominates over Fury in her WoW debut, but Fury finds an advantage and gives it back to Nashville. Fury continues to strangle Nashville throughout the match, and there's a submission hold on Nashville. Nashville escapes from the hole, and it's back to Nashville dominating over Fury. Nashville does a vertical suplex on Fury, then pins Fury, landing a complete pinfall and win the match. Nothing happens post-match. Top Tier versus Tiki Chamora, Kalaki the Island Girl, and Sandy Shore. Match summary spots that I liked. Coach Campbell calls out their opponents before they make their intro and self-proclaims their team as the best and most dangerous tag team in all of pro wrestling. I'm not sure that I'll agree with that, but yeah. Anyways, their opponents, they finally make their intro. All 6 women start off the match okay, but not too great. Top Tier continue to dominate over their opposition all throughout the matches they usually do. A member of Top Tier takes down Shore and pins her to land a complete pinfall and win the match. Nothing happens post-match. Commercial break. Cut to Sibley Skulls with Top Tier being self-proclaimed goats as usual. Cut to Wild World Champion the Classmaster with Samantha Smart. Cuts a quick promo in which Smart says that every opponent's dumb. That every opponent that she faces is dumb. And that she's smarter than everybody. Cut to commercial break. Main event, Paola the Colombian Goat, supposedly, versus Princess Aussie. Match summary / spots that I like. Abilene Maverick argues with David McClain. Abilene Maverick argues with David McClain about Mayfield's supposed injuries on the announce table. Genesis then comes in to fill in for Mayfield. Princess Aussie finally makes her intro. Genesis trolls Aussie by landing by the announce table. She gets back into the ring and dominates over Aussie throughout the match. However, Aussie doesn't need the back on Genesis. Aussie does a German suplex on Genesis. Aussie pins Genesis to a 2 count. Aussie does a submission hold on Genesis. Genesis bites Aussie's hand to escape the hold. Genesis doesn't need the back on Aussie and pins Aussie for a 2 count. Both women continue to be decent. Aussie throws Fury from the top turnbuckle. Aussie jumps from the top turnbuckle onto Genesis and pins Genesis to land a complete pinfall and win the match. Nothing happens post-match as Wild Women at Wrestling goes off the air. Overall, a fairly entertaining episode for this week. All women put up an entertaining enough showing. It was simple, but it was pretty decent fun. This episode was a decent hit. And earlier tonight on LFG and Legend of Future Grace, which is more of a reality competition show, but anyways, LFG and Future Grace show starts off with a recap of last week's episode, then cut to Shawn Michaels with the LFG roster talking about baby faces and heels, and introduces Charlotte Flair, who goes deeper into baby faces and heels. Cuts to the intro of the show. Yeah, that was my dog there. My dog just walked in. You okay, dog? Yeah, that was just my dog. Sorry about that, guys. But yeah, anyways. With LFG and Legend of Future Greats, the show starts with a recap of last week's episode, cuts to Shawn Michaels with the LFG roster talking about baby faces and heels, introduces Charlotte Flair, who goes deeper into baby faces and heels, cuts to the intro of the show, cuts to all the coaches talking about characters in person. It cuts to all the coaches talking about characters and personalities. Cut to Charlotte Flair and the LFG roster, with most of the roster cutting promos regarding their characters, whether they're a babyface or a heel. Cut to the coaches wanting to see more who they want to see their roster compete against. Cut to rundown of all the matches on tonight's show. Cut to commercial break. Cuts to Shiloh Hill versus Harlem Lewis. Match summary / spots that I like. Both men put up an engaging beginning. Lewis dominates over Hill throughout most of the match. Lewis does a German suplex on Hill, then pins Hill for only not even a 2 count, a 1 count, but anyways. Both men viciously slap, then punch each other in the face. Lewis attempts another German suplex on Hill, but Hill reverses and takes down Lewis, then pins Lewis for the complete pinfall to win the match. Nothing happens post-match. Cut to commercial break. BJ Ray versus Trill London. Match summary / spots that I like. London already takes down Ray 3 times as soon as the bell rings. London takes Ray out of the ring. London continues to dominate over Ray, but Ray reemerges and does a submission hold on London. Both men continue to shine. London does a pretty impressive drop kick on Ray. Ray reemerges again, then pins London to win the match. Nothing happens post-match. Cut to commercial break. Xena Sterling versus Tatiana Dumas. Excuse me. Just ate I just ate a cup of noodles for dinner not too long ago. But yeah, anyways. Excuse me, sorry about that. All right. But yeah, anyways. Xena Sterling versus Tatiana Dumas. Match summary / spots that I like. Dumas dominates Sterling right when the bell rings, stretching her and doing submission holds on her. Sterling redeems herself and takes down Dumas quite a few times. Dumas punches Sterling in the face and takes her down as a result, pinning Sterling to land a complete pinfall and win the match. Nothing happens post-match. Cut to commercial break. And then our main event being Serena Linton versus Hayes and Jamison. Match summary / spots that I like. Ring-announcer Mike Rome introduces Dudley and The Undertaker, who there are 2 of the coaches that's on LFG. The other 2 coaches being Booker T and Michelle McCool. Anyways, Michelle McCool and Booker T, they're the 2 other coaches on LFG besides Bubba Ray Dudley and The Undertaker. Anyways, match summary and spots I like. Ring announcer Mike Rome introduces Dudley and Undertaker to the balcony, then introduces Serena Linton and Hayes Jamison into the ring. Jamison offers a handshake to Linton as the bell rings, but Linton rejects and takes down Jamison. Both women put a very solid showing throughout the match. Linton does a submission hold on Jamison. Jamison reaches the bottom rope to break the hold. Both women do it simple but keep it fun throughout the match. Linton pins Jamison while putting her feet on the bottom ring rope while the referee didn't see it to land the complete pinfall and win the match. Nothing happens post-match. Cut to commercial break. Cut to Alicia Taylor, the roster with the LFG roster and the coaches, with Taylor saying that Tatiana Dumas is receiving medical attention. Charlotte Flair critiques everybody's efforts inside the ring. In terms of points, Booker T's with 3 points, The Undertaker's with 2 points, Bubba Ray Dudley's with a single point, and Michelle McCool's left with Jack Squad. Cut to a promo of next week's episode as LFG goes off the air. Overall, solid episode of LFG. All 8 wrestlers did simple matches, but they were fun for what they tried to do in the ring. This episode was a good hit. need to drink some Gatorade. My voice is starting to become a bit rough as I'm talking about all that went down in the history of pro wrestling. Again, I can't give you no reviews of Great American Bash or All In or Saturday Night's Main Event or even Evolution because I was too busy doing other things and doing all that kind of stuff. And pretty interesting week for pro wrestling. I'll definitely watch all the pay-per-views, and maybe on next week's episode, I'll give you a brief rundown and a review of what went down on the PLEs. And yeah, I literally went on this for almost 2 hours. It's been almost 2 hours since it took me 2 hours to almost 2 hours to talk about all that went down in the history of pro and in this week in terms of what happened on pro wrestling for this week. Yeah, it was just a lot of go home shows because it was all pay-per-views and PLEs and just really crazy week. A really crazy week for pro wrestling and then next week I got the TNA Slammiversary pay-per-view. It's just a crazy week for pay-per-views. Just absolutely crazy when it comes to Triple H and WWE as well as AEW and Tony Khan, even TNA and Anthem Sports and Entertainment. Yeah, TKO and TKO being the parent company of WWE. It's just all the stuff's crazy. It's been crazy as to what's been going down as of lately. But yeah, I'll definitely watch all the pay-per-views, and then I'll see. Well, I'm not sure if I'll leave. Don't know if I'll leave quite yet, but yeah, tomorrow I'll definitely start watching. I'll be doing my new bi-weekly reaction show that'll be on Mondays and Saturdays, called The Visceral Grounds. It'll start tomorrow, where I'm going to start watching Breaking Bad and Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles and Sons of Anarchy. It'll be a fun day for me tomorrow to watch all these shows. I can't wait for you guys to watch along with me. And yeah, I can't wait for that. And then on Tuesday, I'm going to watch Clannad and the first feature-length episode of Oshinoko on another new series called Light TV, which will start later than usual because I got a haircut and I got to go to work. Well, I got to go to work first, and I got to get my haircut. The haircut will interfere with my normal time because I'm going to go get my haircut. I might start at 6. I might start at 6:30 in the West Coast, or 9 or 9:30 in the East Coast. Yeah, just to let you know, on my schedule. And then on Wednesday, I'm going to watch Jujutsu Kaisen, Chainsaw Man, Hell's Paradise, and Spy Family as part of my Spies Love in a Dark trio. And then a bit of change on Thursday's schedule. I'm going to watch... I'm still going to watch my Dress Up Darling, but I'm also going to watch Don to Don instead of Buddy Daddies, as what I initially said. So there's that change in the lineup. And then on Fridays and Saturdays, I'm going to watch Ruby. I'm going to watch Miraculous Ladybug, Totally Spies, Witch, Winx Club, and Star vs. the Forces of Evil. I'm going to watch all those shows for a new bi-weekly reaction show called Girl Power, so I'll see you there. Yeah, on Saturdays I'll do my then on Saturdays I'm going to be live twice on Saturday for another episode of The Visceral Grounds, followed by another episode of Girl Power. So yeah, there's that. And then next week I'll be back to do another episode of Yeah, next Sunday I'll be back to do another episode of WHAM A Week in Wrestling, where I go over the week of pro wrestling. So yeah, interesting week this week. There was a lot of craziness that went down throughout this week of pro wrestling, and I'll give you my reviews for Great American Bash and All In and Saturday Night's Main Event and Evolution at some point in the future, as soon as I finish watching them and take notes on them as I do it. But yeah, overall, just spending almost 2 hours talking about what happened this week in terms of pro wrestling, and it's just absolute craziness that's been going on. It's just there's a lot of go home shows, lots of pay-per-views, lots of PLEs. Yeah, I kind of felt that Triple H did an overkill when he tried to put the Great American Bash on the same time as AEW All In and Saturday Night's Main Event and Evolution. It's just an overkill for Triple H to do that. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness, just absolute craziness. But yeah, I really haven't got much of nothing to say. But yeah, I'll definitely I'll see you guys tomorrow for for the Visceral Grounds. I'll be watching Breaking Bad. I'll be watching Sons of Anarchy. I'll be watching Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles. Can't wait to do that with you guys. And yeah, all right. Yeah, I know that I spent almost 2 hours talking about pro wrestling and what went down this week when it came to pro wrestling this week, except for all the pay-per-views and PLEs. But I'll definitely watch those and give you guys a brief rundown and brief review of what went down on those pay-per-views. You know, with the Death Riders, John Moxley versus Hangman Adam Page for the AEW World Title at All In. It's just, yeah. Timeless Tony Storm versus Mercedes Moné for the AEW Women's Title. I believe that I might end the show in exactly 2 hours. At exactly 2 hours. Because really haven't got much of nothing to say. Really, I just gave you guys an almost 2 hour overview of what went down in the week of pro wrestling, and haven't got nothing else to say except I'll see you guys tomorrow for the Visceral Grounds, the very first episode, the Visceral Grounds, where I lose my virginity when it comes to not watching Breaking Bad. Oh my goodness, you haven't seen Breaking Bad yet? Oh my goodness. But yeah, I'll finally be watching Breaking Bad, Sons of Anarchy, and Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles. I'll be watching all those shows tomorrow, and if you like this video, then please hit like, comment, and subscribe. I'd love for you guys to do that, yeah. Uh, anyways, haven't got nothing else to say except for those of you who joined the live stream, thanks. I greatly appreciate it, and yeah, I'll end the stream at exactly 2 hours is what I got. So yeah, anyways, again, I'll see you guys tomorrow for the Visceral Grounds, watching Breaking Bad, Sons of Anarchy, and Terminator: The Sarah Connor Chronicles. Can't wait for that on Monday, which is tomorrow, and yeah. Anyways, guys, that's pretty much all that I gotta say for this live stream, and yeah, I went for 2 hours talking about pro wrestling, and yeah. Anyways, guys, I hope that you guys enjoyed. Please like, comment, subscribe, and yeah. Anyways, see you guys tomorrow for the Visceral Grounds, and yeah. Anyways, that's it for this video. Take care and peace. Wham!